probably only a handful of Canadian artists that you can identify by a single name. You'll know who I'm talking about if I say Joni or Neil or Gord. Actually, with Gord, I have to specify which Gord I'm talking about. But no matter what kind of music you listen to, I can pretty much guarantee you'll know who I'm talking about when I say the name Shania. Shania Twain is the most successful female country artist of all time. Maybe you own one of her multi-platinum records. Maybe you can just sing along to some of the big hit singles. That don't impress me much. Man, I Feel Like a Woman, my personal favorite. Any Man of Mine. But beyond all the mega hits, the career milestones, all the success, Shania Twain has an incredible personal story, one of survival. She grew up in Timmins, Ontario. Her family had very little money. She was abused by her stepfather. For a while, she lived in a shelter. When she was a teenager, she sang in local scuzzy bars just to make enough money for the family. She survived all of that. She left those tiny bars and became, as I mentioned, one of the biggest music stars ever. But then life kept throwing her curveballs. She went through a very public divorce. And, actually, maybe this was the worst part of it, she lost her voice. But after 15 years away from the spotlight, Shania is back with a new record called Now. And I went to Montreal to catch up with Shania Twain. Check this out. Shania, thanks so much for talking to us.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
So 15 years since Up. Now you have Now. I'm really curious to find out whether the sensation of releasing a record feels the same. Do you remember how you felt the day that Now came out?
I did. I felt very different this time around when Now was released than any of my other albums because there was so much anticipation involved with this album, especially on my side.
Yeah.
I had been building up to it for so long. I was, I'd gone through so much fear of getting started and committing to it and, pushing myself to write it alone and take all the responsibility there. That by the time it was ready to release, I was just beyond ready, and I was relieved when it was released. I was relieved.
Couldn't wait to get it out.
I was just so relieved, yeah. So I'd already gone through all of the fear at the beginning phase, whereas with the other albums, it wasn't hard getting started, it was harder. It was more scary finishing it and saying, okay, yeah, it's done, it's done, it's done. And then worrying about how it was going to be received.
Did you feel less worried about how it was going to be received this time?
Completely. Not because I thought it would be well received, but just because I was so personally ready for it that it was already a huge accomplishment to finish. Like finishing it was the accomplishment.
The doing of it.
That's it.
Was almost enough.
That was the accomplishment. Yeah. Exactly.
And then I press play on my CD player. I go to Spotify, I hit play, and I'm all excited. There's a new Shania Twain record, and the first thing I hear is this kind of reggae.
Oh.
Swinging with My Eyes Closed.
Yeah.
Why is that the song you decided to choose to lead things off with?
Well, I consider this my summer song of the album, and there's several fighter songs on the album. There's several songs on the album that are really about overcoming and surviving, celebrating that transition of going from dark to light and arriving somewhere safe or positive.
I mean, you were saying earlier, like, it was the putting it out that was enough. When I first heard the first track, I think I thought, like, well, she's just fearless. But you know what I mean? Swinging with My Eyes Closed I was like, she doesn't care. Like, this is her. I felt that confidence in that first track. You know what I mean?
You felt that release of, like,
well, when I think of Swinging with My Eyes Closed, I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna worry too much about this. I'm just gonna do this thing.
It's about letting go of your fears. It's about facing your fears.
Yeah.
And the whole term "Swinging with My Eyes Closed" is really all about moving forward and fighting through the fear of not knowing what's ahead, not knowing what's next. Your eyes are, we can't always see and know what's next, right? But we can't not move forward. We can't just stay frozen. That's what's behind that song. And, in the light, summery love feel of the song, the love story of the song of, just getting your first kiss, that fear of being afraid of what's next if I, take this kiss or if I, dive into this. it's the same for anything we fear in life, but we just have to do it. We're not going to never do it.
Sure, but not everyone feels that way. Like, I think when I was listening to the record, I know you've said this, the record was done with the optimism of a survivor. Yeah. And I think for me, if someone goes through something like you've gone through, and I want to touch on some of these things, on some of the things you've survived through, you can also come out on the other side being quite cynical. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, this is an optimistically surviving record.
Yes, but I think the only way that I do survive is through the optimism. I need to know, and I believe, change will come. I know that, it's a fact. Change is inevitable, and with change, will inevitably bring something better. It may not be, maybe you're going to go down first, lower.
Yeah.
But you will eventually come back up again, and I just believe in that.
But is this something you knew your whole life? I mean, I think back to when you were younger. I think about your parents splitting up. I think about you being a victim of abuse. I think about everything you went through. Singing in bars, as we were just talking about before the cameras went on, is touring around Newfoundland, playing little bars and circuits. Like, I feel like what you just said, that change is going to come. Is that how you got through all that? Is that how you survived that?
Yes. There was always, there were many phases of my life that were day by day emotional and mental survival. Yeah. And thinking to myself, all right, well, today is like the worst, but, thank God for tomorrow, and tomorrow will be different. Even if it's not better, it will be different. And change is a relief.
Do you ever, when you look back at that time of your life, do you ever wonder how you got through it? Do you ever have those kind of moments?
Yeah, I do pinch myself sometimes, or I'm even my own self confused as to how in that moment I got through it.
Yeah.
And I mean, swinging with my eyes closed is such a great way. It's such a real depiction for me. It's not. There were so many things that I experienced growing up that I literally just closed my eyes for a second. Yeah. And then when I opened them, hopefully it would be different.
Yeah.
Something would be different.
Yeah, it's like getting on a roller coaster.
That's it. You just close your eyes.
Hopefully by the time you're off of it, it's done.
I mean, I remember one example, my dad punched me one time.
Yeah.
And I punched him back. But I closed my eyes and punched him back. It's like little things like that. And so the swing with my eyes closed,
I mean, it's swinging.
You just have to bear down and do it, and just take whatever happens next.
Yeah.
And,
do you ever look at your kid? Your kid's, 16 now?
Yeah, he is 16.
Do you ever talk to him and go you know what I was doing when I was 16?
I do tell him. I don't want to burden him with my, difficult life and the challenges of my life, because I don't want to be ho-hum either, or one of these parents that when I was your age,
I was walking
things
to school.
were really shitty, and you've got it made, and da-da-da-da-da. I don't really want to burden him with, feeling guilty just because his life's, easier than mine was growing up. But I do like to share with him who I am, and my experiences made me who I am. It's just seems to be a more productive way to speak to your kid or your teenager about, who you are and why you think the way you do. And
still, if I was him, I wouldn't be complaining that my phone can't hold a charge in front of you. You know what I mean? I wouldn't complain that my socks are too tight in front of you or anything like that.
Well, what's really cool about our relationship and about being a parent that does have a lot of experience with challenge in life is that he learns from it, and he respects me for surviving it and for being, for still being a positive person. There's a lot of people, just even in the music industry or in the entertainment industry, that don't survive just the challenges of that alone. Yeah. And they end up, it kills some of them, So he sees me as a survivor and respects what it takes to survive and carry on.
I want to change gears a little bit right now and talk a little bit about your singing. But one thing in particular I want to talk about right now is what has to be a nightmare for any singer, which is dysphonia. What was the moment you realized something was wrong with your voice?
I was at the end of the Up tour, and it just started. I just started losing control of it.
Where were you when you noticed it? Do you remember? Were you in the dressing room? Or?
Well, I mean, now looking back, I know that specifically it was in Virginia. And that's when I got bit by a tick and I was diagnosed with Lyme's disease. But I got very, very tired with the Lyme's disease. And it was nearing the end of the tour, so I was tired anyway. So now I'm like dealing with compounding fatigue, right? And I was losing control of my voice. But I figured, well, this is just natural fatigue from touring so long. And I'm a mom, and I'm trying to balance all this, and I've got Lyme's disease.
Yeah, you're tired.
I'm tired. Yeah. I never noted that there was actually something wrong with my voice. I just thought I was tired. So I didn't know that there was anything wrong with my voice until I was rested, and it still wasn't there. 7 years till I really, there was some glimpse of hope that I could determine what was really wrong.
Were you worried you wouldn't be able to sing again ever?
Yes. All that 7 years, I really believed that I would never sing again. Terrible.
I can't imagine what that must be like.
It's terrible. It's terrible. It's like losing any of your... For me, singing is a sense.
Yeah.
It would be like losing your sight or your hearing or something. Yeah. I mean, for me, that's what it was like, and I was grieving. It was a real loss.
You were grieving your voice?
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you change what you're doing now? Like, how does it feel different now? How do you look after your vocal health differently now? Mm-hmm.
Well, now I have to do a lot more work to get the voice strong. So the dysphonia is caused by a weakness. And dysphonia really is just a general term for not being able to phonate as desired. It's like, if you ask your leg to go up and it doesn't go up, it's not cooperating. And so the voice, just doesn't cooperate unless I do a lot of very intense physiotherapy for the voice. So preparing for like a tour, for example, or preparing for the recording takes me a while. I'm an injured athlete, and I need a different preparation than somebody who is not injured. And I've got to do very specific physiotherapy for it to work the way I want it to and need it to.
Are there still moments where, say, if I would never ask you to do this, but say if like I say, oh, let's you and I sing a song together now, and I get out the guitar and I, right. And I say, all right, Shania, let's do it. Like, are you able to do it?
I would panic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would panic.
But no, I'm putting it again. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it.
I like to compare it with sports. So it's sort of like this. It's like if you've got Milos, the tennis player, and let's say, like right now he's got an injury. He's got a wrist injury. He's just had an operation. And if he doesn't go through the physiotherapy to get him to where he should be hitting a ball, and he does it, and someone says, oh, come on, let's just hit a few balls. He'll hurt himself.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll even embarrass himself because, who knows what would happen. Because maybe he wouldn't be able to control the ball the way he should.
Yeah.
That's the same situation for me. I'd either hurt myself or I would embarrass myself because what I would want to come out wouldn't come out. So you've got to condition. And like any injury, you've got to condition till you're ready to do that.
Well, it must have been so liberating to make this record, Shania.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just standing in that vocal booth with the headphones on. I can't imagine. It must have been...
Yes, it was very liberating. I mean, what was really liberating was just being able, getting to the point of doing the Las Vegas residency. That was really the beginning of knowing and realizing that I could do something about the voice issue.
Yeah.
And going on tour was really pushing it. When I did the Rock This Country tour, it was pushing it. Caesar's Palace is a very controlled environment. I mean, it's the easiest gig ever because it's on the voice, I'm saying, because the room's very conditioned. The air is humid and the sound is impeccable and there's no audio issues there, and so you don't strain. And
it's a controlled environment.
Controlled environment, and on top of that, you're not traveling around, you're not flying, and you're not going up in the air, you're not changing altitudes. So, dream scenario, and I said, okay, well, I really would rather end my performing career on a tour and not in such a controlled environment, and that's why I did the Rock This Country tour. But I believed that it would be harder than it was. So that was a pleasant surprise. I believed that that would be it, that I would, I'm not going to push my luck and I'll just get off the bus here.
And now?
And now, I learned so much through that. I actually learned even more about my voice by doing that. And I got better at it, better and better all the time.
I got 2 questions left for you. Question 1 is, I know this isn't a divorce record. I know you've been very adamant about that. However, it's quite confessional about your life. And there are parts of your life involving your ex-husband, Mutt Lange, who produced a lot of your records. What was it like excising some of these demons in some of these songs?
All of it was therapeutic. Every subject that I hit on, writing this album has been cleansing and just very, it's been like a filter.
But don't you have to relive it when you write it?
Yes, of course you do.
Isn't that hard?
Well, yes, it's very hard. I put myself through a lot of emotional turmoil when I write music, and this will be I'm sure this will be the most personal. Well, I'm not sure, but certainly to date, it's the most personal album I've ever written, the most personal music I've ever written. I don't know what I'm going to go through. In the future, maybe there'll be other things that I really feel need to be that close to the bone. But it was very necessary for me to go through that process of reviewing and analyzing and working through all, whether it was, things of my childhood or things as a parent or things from my divorce, losses and they're all in there. And divorce is absolutely all a part of that A phase of ups and downs that had to be part of it.
Last question. I think what we've been talking about through this whole interview has been how you've been able to get through things.
Right.
Be it get through your childhood, get through your divorce, get through Lyme disease, get through dysphonia. If you were to talk to 14-year-old Shania and tell her something, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that it's going to be okay. We all need to know that it's going to be okay by somebody else, and that's what I would say. Especially at that age, I felt that life couldn't get any worse. It was like one of the lowest periods of my life between 13 and 14. And I just wanted so badly for somebody to say, someone that I trusted, to say, it's going to be all right. This will pass, And so that I sort of like I have an anxiousness about staying still. Staying still to me is like too vulnerable of a place to be. You never want to be stuck anywhere. And so I'm always moving. I'm always moving forward. Always, always, always. So my challenge is always to not rush ahead and to actually enjoy where I am and not rush past things and miss a lot of the great things, which was my tendency for many, many years of my life. So it's another reason why I call the album Now. It's like, this is the moment now.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be 60 seconds. The moment is a period and it represents whatever I determine that period is. And so I want to make sure that the period that surrounds the release of this new music and the creation of this new music and the celebration of this new music and sharing it, that I feel fulfilled of whatever that period is and that I don't miss out on anything. So that's, you don't have to rush on. You'll miss more by doing that. And you'll certainly miss out by staying still, standing still. So there's some happy medium in there that you've got to find for yourself. And when I was that age, I was petrified of getting stuck. And so I was like, I just got to rush forward.
I'll say this. I know so many people, especially young women, especially young musicians, and especially a lot of people who found themselves in situations like yours, who heard It's Gonna Be Okay from your music.
I hope so.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my conversation with the great Shania Twain. Her new album Now is out everywhere.